Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps, a program where we normally talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today, however, we have a rather exceptional program as a consequence of a rather exceptional guest, Metropolitan Hilarion. He is the chairman of the Department of External Relations for the Moscow Patriarchate and a permanent member of the Holy Orthodox Synod, the governing body of the Russian Orthodox Church. Metropolitan Hilarion is a musician and an author, having published more than 600 documents. To tell us more, it's my great privilege to welcome His Eminence, Metropolitan Hilarion. Welcome, Your Eminence, and thank you for being with us here today in our program.
Good morning.
Your Eminence, can you tell us something about your vocation? How was it like growing up with this desire to be a priest under a communist regime?
I was 15 when I discovered that I have a vocation for priesthood. Before that, I went to church for several years after I was baptized at the age of 11, and I was studying music in a musical school. And for several years I was thinking whether my vocation should be in music or whether I should join the church and do some active work in the church. And at the age of 15 I decided that I have this vocation for priesthood because the life of the church attracted me, while the outside world was very hostile to the church because it was still atheist time when the church was persecuted. It was no longer a persecution like in the 1930s when practically all or most of the priests were exterminated or exiled, but still the church was suppressed. And it was difficult to be a believer openly. So there were many clandestine believers, like my mother, who brought me to the church, and like myself, who was a pupil of the music school and who did not reveal his Christian vocation.
Music has played an important part of your life. You are a composer, you're a violinist, you're a pianist. How would you say that music has played a role in your spiritual life?
I studied music from the age of 3 until the age of 20, and somehow this shaped my identity.
Can you identify how that would have shaped your identity?
Well, I think music has a very special role not only in the education but also in the formation of the human soul. And for me, musical impressions were always the ones which most deeply penetrated into my mind and soul. And I am usually much more impressed by the musical pieces than, for example, by the pieces of art, of painting, or architecture, or sculpture. And it even happens that, for example, if I am speaking with someone and suddenly I hear the music at the background, I can no longer concentrate on the subject of the conversation because the music enters somehow more deeply. But what happened to me was that at the age of 20 I decided to become a monk. I went to a monastery, and as a part of my monastic renunciation of the world, I also decided not to compose any music, and I even decided not to listen to the music. And for 20 subsequent years, I didn't compose any
That must
music.
have been a great sacrifice.
It was a sacrifice, but it wasn't something which I would have done artificially. It was rather something which I needed for that part of my life. And I only returned to music at the age of 40, when I suddenly and unexpectedly for myself started to compose a great number of melodies and tunes, and for a rather short period of time I composed several major works like St. Matthew Passion or Christmas Oratorio or the Symphony on the Psalms.
Some which have now also been played at the Vatican. I understand there was a concert that an orchestra that you composed that was played for Pope Benedict XVI at the Vatican.
Yes.
Your Eminence, you mentioned earlier that the Russian Orthodox Church suffered grievous persecution. How would you say that the last century has shaped the Russian Orthodox Church?
For us, the experience of martyrdom is an unforgettable experience. Of course, people from my generation didn't witness this type of persecution ourselves, but we know that our fathers and mothers, our grandfathers and grandmothers suffered from persecutions, and in every family there were people who were executed or repressed or spent many years in prison. And this shaped our identity and also our attitude to Christian life. We take it very seriously. And when the Church started to come out of this ghetto in which it had existed for 70 years, it was clear for us that it is through the prayers of the new martyrs and confessors of Russia that the Church is being reborn and rejuvenated.
What would you say then are the challenges facing the Russian Orthodox Church today?
We are living in a secular society, which means that the message which the Church is bringing to people doesn't come through very easily, because many forces in the secular society are just of the opposite nature to what the Church is preaching. And we have to confront various influences coming from the secular society. For example, if we speak about the youth, we see that the whole youth culture or youth subculture is alien to Christianity. And the system of values which is propagated through the mass media, through the system of education, is very different from that which is promulgated by the Church. So, for example, as our Patriarch says, we have an enemy working against us 24 hours a day, meaning a television.
And internet today as well.
And internet today, yes.
Your Eminence, there is a slight paradox because in Russia, statistics suggest that 70% of the population adhere to the Russian Orthodox Church, and yet 60% proclaim to profess a belief in God. How do you explain this paradox?
For many people in Russia, Orthodox Christianity is more of a cultural phenomenon than something they live and experience in their daily life. Many people would identify themselves with the Orthodox Church, and yet their knowledge of religion and their participation in the church life is close to zero. And even there are some people who would say that they are Orthodox Christians, but who don't really believe in God, or who know very little about God, about theology, and about what it is all about. And so there is this huge gap between nominal Christians and real Christians.
Do you sense a spiritual revival in Russia?
Yes.
How?
Well, even statistically, if we look at the quantity of parishes, monasteries, theological schools, it has been quite a remarkable revival. 20 years ago, the Russian Orthodox Church had 6,000 parishes, and now we have more than 30,000. We had 18 monasteries, and now we have more than 800 monasteries. We had 3 theological schools, and now more than 50 theological schools. And when people ask how it is possible that you that you open so many new monasteries in our, so to speak, post-Christian era, We say, well, if you want to see that our era is not post-Christian, just go and visit some of our monasteries.
So you don't believe that we're living in a post-Christian society?
No, I don't believe that any society or any epoch could be post-Christian. Christianity is always relevant. And we see this remarkable rebirth of faith in Russia, where thousands of young people join not only the church, they join monastic life.
So you're optimistic for a revival, if you will, of a spiritual revival for Europe?
I think we should not be too optimistic. We should be realistic, and we should see that the forces which are working against us are very strong. But I think this lack of vocations to which so many Christian churches in Europe complain is a temporary phenomenon. It is not going to continue like that all the time. I believe that there should be a revival of priestly vocations and also of monastic vocations.
You identified that the 21st century would be marked by two specific challenges. One is militant secularism, and the second is different understandings of Christianity or different expressions of Christianity. What do you mean by these two challenges?
One challenge is coming from within, and one challenge is coming from without. The challenge coming from without is indeed militant secularism, which is the attitude to the church, to religion in general, and to Christianity in particular, based on the assumption that it can exist but only on the private level, that Christianity is something about private life. So if you are a politician, for example, you can be a Christian in your parish, you can be a Christian in your family, but your Christian identity should be in no way manifested in your professional life. And we believe that, and of course, linked to this is the tendency towards removing any religious symbols from the public sphere, the claim that the separation of the church from the state means that the church should not be present on the public level, that it can only exist on the private level. And we disagree with this attitude because we believe that Christ created his church not only for private use. Each Christian church has a missionary imperative.
And each individual.
And each individual. And in order to accomplish this mission, we must have an open space, and we must have freedom to express our beliefs without imposing them on anyone.
But the freedom to live.
To express them openly. This is about the militant secularism.
Now, the different versions of Christianity.
The different versions of Christianity are those which are promoted by traditional churches and those that are promoted by liberal churches. Of course, this is a very artificial division in a way, because who is traditional, who is liberal? But we see that there are churches which, in spite of all the influences of modernity, continue to hold to a traditional attitude to moral and social issues. For example, the notion of the family, the attitude to abortion, to euthanasia, to same-sex partnerships. And while it goes against the fashion of the time, this attitude continues to be prevailing in the Catholic Church and in the Orthodox Church, while many Protestant communities opted for a revision of moral standards, of social ethics, in order for it to suit the fashion of modern times. And very often we see that the very essence of Christian moral teaching is being mutilated in order to suit contemporary secular standards. And I believe that this liberal version of Christianity has in fact very little to do with original Christianity, i.e. with the teaching of Jesus Christ and of his apostles. And it seems to me that the gap between these two versions of Christianity is growing.
Can one say that the seeds of destruction, if you will, or the breakup, for example, what we see in the Anglican community, unfortunately, lie exactly precisely in these questions?
Yes, it lies in these questions. And I was a witness of this deep division within the Anglican community when I attended the last Lambeth conference as an observer from the Russian Orthodox Church. I spoke with many bishops who were there representing their respective communities, and many of them were deeply dissatisfied with the state of affairs and with what they saw as the prevailing liberal trend within the Anglican Church. Some of them decided to join the Catholic Church.
You have proposed a European Orthodox Catholic alliance. What do you mean by this alliance, and what would be the aims of this Catholic Orthodox alliance?
I believe that Catholics and Orthodox are very close in their attitude to moral and social issues. I'm not speaking about theological dialogue, which continues to go on in order to reveal our theological differences and in order perhaps to bring us closer to one another. But I'm saying that in moral issues, in social issues, and basically in our attitude to the challenges of contemporary epoch, we are very close and our teachings are identical. And I believe that without being one church, without having Eucharistic communion, without having solved all our theological problems, we can learn how to work together and how to confront together those challenges of modernity which I mentioned. Very often the Catholic Church in the West expresses certain positions and then is heavily criticized by the secular press. And it appears as if the Catholic Church were alone defending traditional Christian moral values, while the Orthodox Church is its ally. So I believe that without claiming that we will solve our differences, which we inherited from the past centuries, we can learn how to work together, and that our attitude to each other should be based on the notion that we are no longer rivals, we are allies.
Now you focused on the word European alliance. Why not a worldwide alliance?
It could be a worldwide alliance, but I believe that we can start in Europe, because it is in Europe that the major ideological battle between Christianity, between traditional Christianity and secularism is going on. And at least here is where we can try our forces. Perhaps later we can expand this alliance to the world. We can also, it should not be exclusively organized for the Catholics and Orthodox. I believe that some others could join this strategic partnership.
Nonetheless, we have seen that the pace of this dialogue has increased over the years, and particularly under the pontificate of Pope Benedict XVI. Can you tell us, how do you perceive Pope Benedict XVI and what has impressed you about him as a person?
I met Pope Benedict XVI a number of times. Once we had a rather long and substantive conversation about various issues, and I was impressed by his very clear vision of where the Church should go. And he is clearly the man of the Church. He is not a mass media hero. He is not someone who would do things in order to be popular with the mass media or with the public opinion. And very often he makes statements which are not easily taken by the secular society and by the secular press, and he is often criticized for what he says. But I believe that what he says is what he believes to be the traditional position of the Catholic Church. And this is precisely what a church leader should do nowadays. A church leader should say the truth without being afraid of public reaction.
Pope Benedict has also spoken about a dictatorship of relativism. What challenges this, and how, again, can the Catholic and Orthodox Alliance, if we can use this word, respond to this question?
Well, the challenge of relativism is something which he mentioned in his speech before the conclave, where he was elected. And I would say that it so happened that the idea of the Catholic Orthodox Alliance was formed in my head when I was speaking publicly at the University of Fribourg, where I happened to hold a chair of Privatdozent and now of titular professor. And it was exactly on the day of his election as the Pope that I proposed this alliance. So in my mind, it somehow happily coincided.
The Holy Spirit is working.
I was finishing my speech when the news Habemus Papam arrived into the auditorium. And I believe that he is the right man to lead the Catholic Church, and that it is clear that during his pontificate the contacts with the Orthodox Church have intensified. He is very sensitive to our concerns, and he is someone with whom we work easily and happily.
Europe is also confronted, and I include Russia in this concept of Europe, also challenged by Islam. Islam is a concern for Russia. Islam is a growing concern for Europe. How do we as Christians respond to this question of Islam?
Well, I think one of the best responses which I heard was coming from my friend Cardinal Kurt Koch, who was still Bishop Kurt Koch at that time, and who said that we should not fear strong Islam, we should rather fear weak Christianity. And I believe that when we are confronted by a force, we should first of all look at our weaknesses. And for example, many people are afraid of the numerical growth of Muslim population in Europe. But I believe that we should rather ask ourselves why we Christians do not want to give life to many children, why our families are so small, why we have a birth rate which doesn't even provide for the
replacement level.
For the replacement level, yes. And so for me, the answer is very clear. Many people in the so-called Christian society, and even those who believe to be Christians, who identify themselves with the Catholic or with the Orthodox churches, they do not follow traditional Christian moral teaching about family life. They plan their family, they plan the quantity of children, and very often it is one child or two children which are planned because it is believed that to have more children would not be very comfortable, and for people comfort and success and well-being became a priority.
There's also a spiritual component, that is that our, let's say, the questions of materialism. Previously, for example, under communism, the oppression came, or let's say the persecution came from the top, and the loss of faith came from the pressure coming from the regime. But now secularization means that we are abandoning our faith, and this spiritual vacuum has left then the ground open for other values to enter into the market, if you will.
Yes, and religion becomes one of the items on the market, but not the main thing for many people. And so for someone to be a Christian may mean, lead a normal life, so to speak, a life which will not differ from that of many other people, to have a family with one child or maybe with two at most, and to occasionally visit the parish, and that's about it. While we believe that to be a Christian means to be a Christian all the time, in the family, in your workplace or where you are studying, with your friends, with your enemies, you always have to be a Christian.
Aid to the Church in Need has been a partner for the Russian Orthodox Church for over a decade. How important is this help for the Russian Orthodox Church?
I think that Aid to the Church in Need is an organization which plays a very important role in revival of Christianity and also in supporting those Christian churches which are suffering or which are in need. The Russian Orthodox Church can no longer be described as a poor church. But if you look at the scale of rebuilding of the church, of restoration of the church life, this scale is unprecedented, and therefore the needs are also unprecedented. Very often we see big churches built in big cities with all sorts of possible forces attracted and also human and financial resources. But we do not always see many churches in poor areas, in small villages, which need to be restored or which need to be built, and for which very little financial support could be attracted locally. And this is why organizations like Aid to the Church in Need are necessary, welcomed, and appreciated.
Your Eminence, thank you for your time, and thank you for being with us here today in our program.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the question of Catholic Orthodox dialogue, the question of the Russian Orthodox Church, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.